This film, entitled Restart the Earth, will tell the story of the condition of the Earth which is experiencing destruction and can barely be saved. This started when all the plants on Earth mutated into terrible creatures, so the remaining humans have to survive in a refugee camp. The film opens by showing the condition of the world which is experiencing a very terrible global disaster. All corners of the city and buildings are covered with the appearance of plants. Chaos is everywhere and countless lives have been lost. This happens because plant species mutate into very scary creatures or turn into monsters. Therefore, now the world is on the verge of destruction because plants attack and prey on humanity without exception. Then the scene shifts to a little girl named Yuan. Yuan looks for her friend who has now been preyed on by a monster plant. The father, whose name is Yang Hao, tries to make Yuan aware that his friend is now gone. Yuan, who still didn't accept this situation, was forced to take her father away from her, because if they are even a little late, they might be the one's next meal. Their journey was not easy because they were always targeted by plant monsters. Their shape is like insect-eating plants in general. However, due to genetic changes, the plant turned into a vicious and large monster. After struggling to escape from the plant monsters, now Yang Hao and his daughter Yuan go to a house to take refuge from the plants that are chasing them. They decided to rest there that night. Then, Yuan asked her father why he didn't kill the plant, even though the plant had eaten her mother at that time. Here Yang Hao couldn't answer and apologized because he couldn't save her mother. Before Yuan went to bed, Yang Hao gave Yuan a gift and wished his daughter a happy birthday. Today is Yuan's birthday. Yang Hao also listened to the radio while watching Tonight. However, because he was tired, Yang Hao finally fell asleep. Then deep in his dream, he remembered the times before this terrible disaster occurred. That day, Yang Hao and his wife and child were planning to go on holiday. However, their journey was stopped due to heavy traffic jams in the city. In the car, the wife, who already knew that a disaster had occurred, said that the world situation would improve if the project she was working on was successful. Yuan also felt proud because her mother would save the world. However, the radio news made them worried because information was circulating that plant growth cells were developing very quickly and could not be controlled. At the same time, suddenly all the residents of the city ran out of the cars in a panic and were in a great hurry. Seeing this chaotic situation, Yang Hao felt confused about what had happened. Then, Yang Hao was immediately awakened from his sleep by the screams of his daughter Yuan calling him. Yang Hao was shocked to see his daughter being carried by a plant that was determined to prey on her. Then Yang Hao immediately followed the plant using a tracking device to find Yuan's whereabouts. The father then walked along the road which had now become more planted. Very carefully Yang Hao tried to search every corner and hoped that nothing happened to Yuan. Then, Yang Hao finally entered a building according to the location of his tracker. Then Yang Hao found his daughter's whereabouts and threw a flashlight at Yuan to fight and survive the plant monster. And sure enough, Yang Hao's efforts were successful because the plant monster didn't like light. However, now more plant monsters are coming and making them even more panicked. Then Yang Hao destroyed the window wall in that place so that sunlight could enter the building. Yang Hao finally managed to break through it, and immediately the plant retreated and ran away from there because it didn't want to be exposed to sunlight. Due to exhaustion from fighting against plant monsters, Yang Hao is now starting to become unconscious due to the plant attack. When he fainted, he remembered the times before this disaster occurred. It turns out that Yang Hao's wife is a scientist who works for a company. At that time, his wife told Yang Hao that this plant monster came from failed trials carried out by researchers. The wife tries to bring her lab equipment and look for something to fight the plant monsters. Yuan, who was there, also saw the plants that the lab was examining in an aquarium moving. The wife said that plant entities would stop if they were exposed to ultraviolet light. Then when they were looking for a way to deal with it, suddenly a plant monster appeared and broke through the wall there. The plant monster then tied up the body of Yang Hao's wife. Seeing his wife being pulled, Yang Hao immediately tried to save her. But at the same time, Yuan was also pulled by a plant monster from behind the door. Yang Hao became increasingly panicked and confused about who to save. The wife then told him to let himself go and immediately save his daughter. With a heavy heart, Yang Hao chose to save his son Yuan because of orders from his wife. Then back to the present, Yang Hao finally wakes up and now sees several people from a group of military trying to save Yang Hao and his daughter in that place. They are now fighting with the plant monsters, thereby shooting at them. However, because plant monsters don't, it was running out and getting more and more, so the captain ordered his troops, Lei, to activate the UV radiator rays they were carrying. And immediately, all the plants in that place withdrew and left there. They were relieved because they could finally be free from the crisis for a while. After that, the team leader of the soldiers Fang Yong contacted his superior who was at the command center. He reported their current situation. Because there was a leak in the measuring device on the way, the road conditions were difficult for them to pass. The team leader also reported that they had succeeded in rescuing 2 survivors, namely Yang Hao and Yuan. Hearing Fang Yong's report, a general then told the group to immediately complete their mission. When Fang Yang was going to smoke, Yuan also looked at him seriously. Seeing this, Fang Yang gave Yuan a magic trick that displayed a photo of his dead daughter. Fang Yang was curt and then said that if Yuan's father died, then he would invite Yuan to be with him because he also lost his daughter. Yang Hao was a little emotional when he heard that. Then, the fat man soldier tried to lighten the mood and approached Yang Hao and his daughter. He introduced himself as Ershi, an analyst member there. Then Yang Hao also introduced himself. He admitted that he had been trying to find a place of refuge. Then Ershi also explained that they were a joint team of 141 teams in the world. He also explained the current situation they were facing, namely the global green wave storm situation. In the last 3 years, this green wave storm has disrupted human civilization. Now the storm is expected to appear again for the second time. The research center has predicted that this storm will kill 93% of the world's human population. Based on its biological activity, this green wave will arrive in 54 hours. This global green wave storm will later appear and damage the surface of the earth. This green wave is the roots of plants that are 10 km deep underground. This is what causes if this wave occurs, 93% of the world's population will likely die. Therefore, this joint team was formed to save this disaster. They were given the mission to install N11 malic hydrazide dosing equipment which functions as a tranquilizer for the plant's parent roots at 47 launch points throughout the country so that the growth of the green wave storm can stop. However, Yang Hao said that according to his late wife, the wave estimation signal tool was not accurate and could change at any time. While they were explaining their current plan, suddenly Shi's detector sounded and indicated that something was coming towards them. Suddenly there was a big shake in that place and caused some of them to fall into a hole. Meanwhile, the other team tries to fight the plant monsters because their UV rays have been damaged. The situation finally calmed down. When they woke up, they were separated from each other. One soldier from the previous joint team, namely Lei, suffered serious injuries as a result of the shock. The deputy team leader then contacted the others and reported their situation. He also said to continue traveling and meet outside the building. Not long after, danger came again. From there appeared a man-eating plant monster that resembled a large snake and approached Yang Hao and his daughter. The deputy team leader, Xuanyi, tried to calm Yang Hao and his daughter because the plant couldn't see but was very sensitive to sound. Then slowly they tried to leave there carrying a very important agent box. However, when they were about to leave, Yuan accidentally made a sound because she hit the shelf behind her. The plant monster heard their voice and immediately the plant turned into a very vicious plant. They tried to run and fight, but because the monster was so big, in the end, Lei, who was injured, was willing to sacrifice his life to save the three of them. He told them to get out of there immediately and immediately took out a Molotov cocktail from his hand to blow up the plant. As a result of the bomb explosion, they immediately fell and left the building. Because of the sound of the explosion, the other teams were able to find them outside the building. The team leader also asked about their condition and where Lei was. Xuanyi frustratedly said that his troops had died to save them, and now they don't know what to do anymore because their troops who had an important position as mechanics have died. Then, team leader Fang Yang asked Yang Hao to come with them on a mission, because Yang Hao seemed to understand machines and could replace Lei's vacant position. However, Yang Hao refused because he only wanted to save his daughter. Then Gui got angry at Yang Hao who didn't seem to thank them for being saved. However, Yang Hao reiterated that he only wanted to return to the refugee camp and didn't want anything to happen to his child. Seeing this, Xuanyi didn't want to force him and gave him a navigation tool to guide Yang Hao to the refugee camp. Then they separated. The army team continued their mission and Yang Hao and his daughter planned to go to the refugee camp. However, Yuan suddenly turned around and said that he wanted to save the world because the joint team needed Yang Hao as a machine mechanic who would be needed later. Seeing his daughter's determination, he could do nothing but comply with her request. They are now continuing their journey. On the way, Yang Hao explained to his daughter that this city was once a place where he and his wife dated, but now the city looks like a dead city and there are no signs of life anymore. A few moments later, suddenly there was a very big shock in the building and that place suddenly collapsed by itself. They all panicked and didn't understand the situation. And after checking, it turned out that this came from the green wave which occurred earlier than the specified time. Even though the green wave should appear in the next 50 hours. However, they had appeared earlier than expected as Yang Hao's wife had previously said. Then they all rushed to save themselves. But unfortunately one of the last troops had to sacrifice himself so that his friends could take cover from there. Then their team leader ordered all his members to immediately take cover and get into the damaged bus. They also put on their safety belts to survive the green waves that hit them. And after a while the green wave reached their bus and made the bus they were riding and bounce around until finally, they ended up bouncing into a building. After the situation calmed down, they were finally grateful that they had managed to survive the green wave that occurred. However, the situation is getting more dangerous because the green wave has occurred faster than its time. The team leader also wanted to inform the command center and other teams about this because it would be too late to install the equipment. But Shi said their communication equipment with this center had been damaged due to the previous incident. They also seemed desperate about this. However, Yang Hao looked at the surrounding buildings and pointed out a signal tower that they could use to provide news to the command center. They also had hope again. But unfortunately, the only way they have to pass is a tower bridge which is connected to the building. Carefully, they tried to cross the bridge. However, the guy in front suddenly stopped and said that part of the pole was cut off and they had to walk along the edge of the pole. The situation became tense when it was Shi's turn to cross. Because of his fat body, everyone was worried. Luckily, he chose to creep so as not to lose his balance. And now it was Yuan's turn to pass through this street. Yuan looked calm as he walked, but suddenly they were shocked by the collapse of the building there. This makes the dust from the building debris make it difficult for them to get up there. Yuan became unfocused and made her fall from the bridge. But luckily, team leader Fang Yang managed to save Yuan by hanging under the rope bridge. However, this couldn't last long because the rope used by the team leader couldn't hold him up. Seeing this, the team leader then handed over this mission to Xuanyi, who was the deputy leader here, and sacrificed himself so that Yuan could survive. After that, Yang Hao was still struggling to pull Yuan back up, but the building next to them was also about to collapse. They panicked and immediately ran from the bridge, leaving Yang Hao behind. The situation became even more tense because the building was about to fall on the bridge. Fortunately, Yang Hao and his daughter have now managed to safely catch up with Xuanyi. Long story short, now they are rushing to get to the building with the tower. Upon arrival at the building, Ershi tried to connect the signal to the command center, assisted by Yang Hao, who turned on the electric current there. Then Xuanyi, now taking the place of team leader, tried to talk to the leader in the command center. Xuanyi tried to explain their current situation. This was also known to the command center. He said that the green wave would occur 10 hours earlier than the specified time. Because time was very limited, all command centers around the world agreed to cancel the mission. Not only their team, but joint teams around the world also felt angry and desperate about this decision. Yang Hao tried to ask about what was going on because they looked like they had no hope. Then Ershi explained that their mission was to insert a plant antidote into the soil, but the living plant roots blocked the soil. So in a very short time, it is likely that the mission will not be successful. Seeing this chaotic situation, Yang Hao then tried the mic there and spoke to convey something. Yang Hao tries to persuade the chief commander by saying that he has a family to save. So did all of them, so there was no harm in trying rather than sitting still waiting to die. He hopes that the command leadership will support them and continue the mission even though the possibility is small. Suddenly, the whole world heard Yang Hao's words, which made the commando leader change his mind about continuing his mission. Even though their chance of success is only 0.3%, the commando leader continues the mission that Xuanyan and his members will carry out. This was also followed by other joint teams located throughout the world. Then, to shorten the time, they rushed to the launch site for the antidote. The antidote they carry is useful for taming plants permanently. After a while, they finally arrived at their destination. Ershi then tried to activate the power to insert the plant antidote they brought. He panicked because there was no electricity to support him. However, fortunately, there is Yang Hao. He has now turned on the system and made them work. And after a few moments, the tool was ready to be launched into the ground. However, when it was launched into the ground, the tool got stuck in a layer of soil according to the command leader's prediction. Because they were close to the mountains, so they couldn't try like other countries who tried to destroy the layer with submarines. Then, Xuanyi explained that this place was surrounded by volcanic activity. Yang Hao also had an idea. If this place had geothermal energy coming from Mount Merapi, then they could use the lava flow from Mount Merapi under the place to push and destroy the layers of soil so that the antidote could get in there. Xuanyi agreed and planned to detonate the bomb below so that the lava could flow through the soil layer so that the antidote could enter the ground. Then Yang Hao offered himself to help Xuanyi and Gui because they both needed him to understand more about the machines and systems down there. At first, it was difficult for Yuan to see her father leave, but her father calmed her down and promised he would come back as soon as possible. Yuan finally accepted her father's promise, although with a heavy heart. Then Yang Hao entrusted his daughter to Ershi. Because they didn't have much time left, they hurried away from there and immediately took the elevator to go down. Then Ershi helped them by guiding the path they would take from above. When they arrived at the bottom, they still had to look for the last room where they would use to put the bomb. However, their journey was not easy. They had to face very vicious plants that blocked their path ahead. The fight became increasingly fierce, and the bomb that Gui was carrying accidentally fell. This immediately made the bomb activate prematurely. Meanwhile, the increasing number of plants now overwhelmed them, until finally Yang Hao's leg was injured by the plant monster's attack. Seeing that they didn't have much time, Gui decided to sacrifice himself so that Xuanyi and Yang Hao could pass through that place. Then they decided to go to the volcanic lava area. Because the door there seemed to be locked, Yang Hao told Xuanyi to find a tool to open it. However, it turns out that Yang Hao lied to Xuanyi. He closed the door so that Xuanyi couldn't get in. Yang Hao said that they didn't have time and he would hinder Xuanyi because his condition was already serious. He also told Xuanyi to immediately go upstairs and he would sacrifice himself to blow up the place. Here, Xuanyi felt very sad and devastated to see Yang Hao's sacrifice, which should have been his duty. Yang Hao also advised him to look after his daughter, who would later become an orphan after his death. Xuanyi finally went upstairs with heavy steps. When he got there, he could only remain silent when Yuan asked about her father's whereabouts. And from the CCTV camera, Yang Hao said goodbye to Yuan, his beloved daughter. Everyone burst into tears seeing Yang Hao's sacrifice for this country. And then the bomb that Yang Hao was carrying had now exploded. Immediately the larvae flow down the path and penetrate the core of the plant, so that the antidote system manages to touch the parent root of the plant. Now all plants in all corners of the world have been successfully tamed and these plants will no longer attack the surface of the land. Everyone who saw it felt very happy to see that this disaster had ended. And the film ended.